Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's very special webinar, Leap Ahead. Leslie, you're on still. Do you see my screen? What do you see? You're muted, though.
Hold on one second.
There you go. You sound.
Yeah,
Do you see my PowerPoint?
I do.
Perfect. Leslie, you just stay on. I'm not going to have you get off after all, okay?
Right.
You can be my co-host, okay? I just found out that my CEO is not going to make it for the beginning part. I think he's going to make it toward the end. So we'll pop him on that. So I'm going to start with the welcome and say welcome everybody. And I am not Antonio Civitella, our president and CEO. I am Rick DeRico. By the way, do you see only the slides, Leslie, or do you see a thing that says questions on there too?
I do not. I see where it says next slides, but it says no notes under that. And that's what I see.
You see, so you don't see just.
I can see your main slide, and then off to the side, I see next slide and notes. I don't know if that's what everybody else can see though.
Oh, okay. So I'm still learning this system, everybody. So just bear with me. Let's see if I can move that. Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, everybody. Well, I'm just going to keep moving ahead because time is of the essence. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to our very special webinar today. It's Leap Day, and so that's an extra day of the year, and that's a day that we said let's make the most of this extra day, and so we wanted to have a great panel discussion about leaping ahead in your district, and so I want to make sure everybody knows. First of all, does anybody have a Leap Day birthday? If anybody is a Leap baby, or they call them leaplings. I'm going to have a little slide on that. If anybody is a leapling, I'd like to have you put a comment in the comment section. Do we have any leaplings in our midst here? I'm not seeing anybody jumping in yet on that. So okay, okay. So I want to remind everybody that these webinars are always recorded, and so you can find them on our. If you go to our homepage, transfinder.com, you'll find them there, and it'll be just at the very top. There's a YouTube channel, and that's usually the very first thing that you can see is our YouTube channel, and then the very first recording is usually the last one we just did, which will be today's webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Leslie Peabody. He's already on. Peabody, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. I went to school in Boston, and there's a town called Peabody, Mass, and they hammered into you that's not Peabody, but you are Leslie Peabody.
I married into it. So whatever way you want to say it.
What was the maiden name? What was your maiden name?
Childers.
Okay. My wife, unfortunately, went from a Thorn to DeRico, and nobody butchers Thorn, but everybody butchers DeRico, but that's okay. So thank you so much. So Leslie is the Director of Transportation at Santee School District in California. Thanks so much for joining us. Vanessa Douville, can you join us? Transportation Coordinator at Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools in Canada. So good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. And then last but not least, Vanessa Verbraak, head driver at Maine-Endwell Central School District in New York. How are you?
Hi, Rick. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's this learning the technology and while the plane is still midair, but that's okay. But you guys can, again, see my slides. You seeing my slides?
Yes.
Okay. A couple little factoids. I just figured why not share a couple of things about leap year facts. Just in case those of you wonder, like, why do we even have this extra day? Here's why. It takes the Earth 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds, but who's counting, to complete its orbit. Babies born on this day called leaplings. I already mentioned that. There are 4 million people born on February 29th globally right now. The odds of being born on this day, 1 in 1,461. Summer Olympics are always held on leap years. Apparently there are 2 leap year capitals, one in Texas and one in Mexico, where they have these multi-days. That is a little interesting factoid there. We're back to our panel. But I feel like, for starters, why don't we just get into a little bit about what oh, hang on a minute. Someone did answer about leap year, baby. Do we? Oh, okay. One of my attendees, Michael, thank you. They Healy Bus provides transportation to Peabody, Massachusetts. So I feel like there is a reason why I needed to say it wrong. I don't know, not really. Okay, so I'm going to start off by just asking you to tell me a little bit about yourselves, your career paths, and then about your district in terms of how many students you're transporting, how many, you are rural district, suburban, urban, and then we'll get into basically the topic at hand. So Leslie, tell me a little bit about your district and your career.
Santee, let's talk about Santee first. Santee is a city in San Diego, California, out on the east side of San Diego. So we have beautiful weather and great people, and definitely a tourist town. Come visit us. So Santee is 17 square miles. We transport about 500 kids, not as many as a lot of you do probably have much bigger districts, some smaller. 200 special ed and about 300 of general ed students. So we're not big, but we're not small. We fall right in the middle. And then myself, I started out as a baby for one of our local high school districts, Grossmont Union High School District, as a bus attendant, quickly became a school bus driver, worked in the dispatch office, and then moved up to another school district, North San Diego, Poway District, under Tim Purvis, and was mentored by him and his staff. Was a great experience for me. I moved on to ambulance 911 routing for our city or county of San Diego, and then went into working for the DoD and did 911 dispatching for the DoD, where I was going to take a contract out of the country, decided.
We have 17 traditional schools in 6 communities, and we currently bus about 4,300 students. I've been in my current position for 13 years, and I would say we are considered a rural division in our area.
Very good. And then Melissa.
So I am the head driver at Maine-Endwell Central School District. I would say we're a rural, pretty much a rural community. I started driving bus back in 2003 for a very small district with about 400 kids. And I did that for several years and then took a hiatus and didn't drive at all for 7 years. And I love bus driving, and I actually enjoyed the ability to flex my schedule a little bit, have the middle part of the day. I went back and got my degree and came back to bus driving in 2017. And 3 years ago, I moved over to Maine-Endwell as the head bus driver. And we currently have 2,700 students, and we bus about 2,200.
Okay, great, great. So, tell me, we're just, the issue at hand right now is just about how to help your district leap ahead. Basically, this idea of, it can be a bunch of things. We talked about driver shortage yesterday. We talked about special ed and transporting special needs students. We talked about technology and getting buy-in from your transportation, from not just your transportation team, but also your administration. So I wanted to start a little bit with just how you have helped play a role in getting your district to leap ahead, maybe what you inherited. I know, Leslie, you inherited, I think, a manual, right? Type of system. So tell me a little bit about what you inherited, and then what role you played in helping the district kind of move to the next level, and maybe what it was involved in that. How did you get buy-in? I know, not everybody has a receptive school board or superintendent. I think you all did. But, just tell me a little bit about what your role in helping to bring your district to the next level. Maybe going back into like, here's what I inherited and here's where we are today. And if you want to go even further and say, here's where I want to take it to. And I'll just start again with Leslie and then I'll go, but feel free to jump in. anybody else on, but I'll just start with Leslie since you're on I can see you straight ahead in my screen. Lucky you.
I know, lucky me. Um, so, excuse me, I started here about 3 years ago, directly after COVID, and was fortunate enough to be handed what I wanted. Whatever you want, let's bring us to whatever software you want, whatever we need, please analyze and move forward from there. So lucky, not lucky that I got to do that. It made a really quick learning curve, but I leaned a lot on my dispatchers and my staff to show me what we really needed. And we're not as big as Melissa or Vanessa's district, it sounds like. So I only have one dispatcher, but she is incredible. And she laid it all out for us, showed us what we really needed. She was doing everything pen and paper, Excel spreadsheet, everything was Excel. Her mind is amazing. So she had everything laid out, but we really needed versatility. We needed something to move us forward into the future, to connect with other things that we may need in the future, whether it be for the mechanic or whether it be for safety and training, and have that versatility with a software program as well, because we should all know how to do that job and jump in when needed. And so we needed that software. And I was lucky enough to research that, take my team out to go look at all of the softwares out there that we could get our hands on, and we landed on Transfinder. So that's where we're at, and we're still learning and we're still moving forward and figuring out the best ways to use Transfinder for our district. We've only had it for now a year and a half or so. So that's where we're at with Transfinder. It's fairly new still.
Now, Leslie, you also did something interesting, or you did a field trip. You brought your team to look at another site and see what they were using and how it was working for them.
We did. So I'm fortunate enough, as I said before, to go have other district experience. So working for Poway, working for Grossmont, being familiar with the 911 dispatching systems and their CAD units. And so I have that dispatcher background, love to put that puzzle together, but I wanted to see the buy-in from my staff as well, because that's huge. That's who uses it. Rick, when you came to me and you said, we want to do this panel, I said, perfect. Veronica's got you. She'll be your dispatcher. And no, Les, you. Oh, me. Like, why me? She's the mind behind all this. So I really needed her buy-in, and I really needed my my office clerk and my safety and trainer at the time to see that. So we went to San Marcos, another huge district in our county, who has Transfinder, and spoke with Andrea, their amazing dispatcher, about it, got to see it at work. So that's how we really landed on it, is to have that. And I know we're going to move forward with this, but at the end of the day, it was my call to make. But in order for me to make that call, I wanted to have my staff's input. They're the ones with the experience.
That's great. Awesome. How about you, Vanessa? Tell me a little bit about what you've inherited, where you've taken the district so far, your transportation department, where you want to go, and how you got there. What, we heard a little bit with Leslie in terms of getting some buy-in as well. I think by doing that field trip, right, Leslie? That brought a little buy-in. People feel like they're part of the decision making, even though you had to make the final call. Vanessa, how about you? What did you inherit? Where are you headed?
So prior to starting with Transfinder a few years ago, we had a software that the division used for, I think, at least 20, if not 25 years. Our division had a significant cyber incident that was the impetus for us to switch to a web-based hosted application. So when I started, I'll be honest, we kind of just thought we would go to the updated version of what we currently had. But after seeing a number of presentations and talking to other people in the province that use different softwares, Transfinder really did seem to fit what we needed. Now, Transfinder is not the largest software used in our province by far, so it felt a little bit like stepping out onto a ledge to try to go elsewhere. And like Leslie said, at the end of the day, it kind of was my call. We do have a committee that sits on, sat in with me and went through all the presentations, but it was my decision to go forward with it. And we contract, so I didn't need necessarily the part for for keeping track of vehicles and stuff like that, but I needed routing, parent communication, and I wanted to be able to expand to GPS, which we will be doing within the next year. So it has been a good choice for us, and I know a few more people in our province have since got on board with Transfinder, so it is growing here, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with it.
So you did some due diligence. I mean, in a way, I think you make a good point. A couple of things. Sometimes the path of least resistance, you kind of think, well, this other product, whatever that may be, has already been vetted. So there's not going to be any, if any issues come around, it's not going to be, well, we were always using that, so it's not like it was my call. Now you stick your neck out a little bit. That does take some leadership. It really does take leadership to be able to, and then when you don't have other, like Leslie had other districts in the area that were using Transfinder, correct, Leslie? But you didn't. That's not the, hopefully that'll change, Vanessa. But the point is that you really had to show that leadership to say, well, you know, I do think this is the best product. I think this is the best service, and this is the way to go. How did you, but you talked about a committee as well, which helped, I think. They said they all kind of felt the same. Well, you got buy-in on the committee as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, the committee was fully agreed that Transfinder was the way to go. So there wasn't a lot of, if there would have been pushback from them, it would have been a harder hill for me to climb, but they agreed. So once we made that decision, it was fairly easy to move forward with them.
Leslie, you had a good quote yesterday. What was it? The team gets, I'll let you say the quote, but something about wins and losses.
My team gets the wins, I get the losses. So at the end of the day, it's going to be my decision because I'm going to be the one to take responsibility.
I really
So,
like that. I think for Melissa, you're shaking your head. So tell me a little bit about what you have a unique role because you have a TD that you
Yes.
work really closely with, but he's got multiple hats to wear, and you're kind of filling in a role. There's a really nice synergy, complementary roles. But first of all, tell me a little bit about that role, and then what you've inherited, how he's also helped. He sounds like he's been incredibly encouraging to take ownership of things. And so tell me a little bit about what you've inherited, how you've helped bring it to the next level, and then how you want to leap ahead.
Okay, well, we do have a director of transportation, but as you said, he wears many hats. So currently he serves as director of transportation and the director of HR. We currently have, I think, about 450 employees in the district. So as you can imagine, that keeps him very busy. He has been an assistant principal before. He heads maintenance and custodians. So he's not in the office very much, but he's extremely supportive as far as helping us with our needs. So when I came in 2020, directly after COVID, it was a strange time for school districts for sure. And I was in a new role, so I had to learn that role quickly and think on my feet very quickly. And we had Transfinder, we had Pro, and we had that, we used it, I learned it, it's a great program. But then as I started talking to other folks, they said, well, you should really check out Plus. It's got a lot of great features. You'll save a ton of time with routing. So that's my role I do the nuts and bolts day-to-day routing, dispatching, field trips, finding coverage. And when we're really short, I will have to drive, but thankfully we're not in that position very often. So they had used Pro for a number of years, but our maps were really outdated. So we really looked at, would it be better to look at getting our maps updated? And instead of just doing that, why not just move forward and get more of a different program, one that's going to keep up with that. And we also use Stop Finder, and we actually got that prior to getting Plus, and we've had great success with that. What's important to us as a district is to have good communication with the parents and provide an excellent service. And I think that we've done that in conjunction with Transfinder. It's helped us out a lot.
So even recommending upgrading technology is still a sticking your neck out type of, right? I mean, if you've had something that's been working and doing the job, saying, hey, why don't we go to Plus, which we launched in 2020, April of 2020. What did that make you a little nervous?
Yeah, a little bit. I had to sell it to our administrative team, what the costs and benefits, weigh the efficiencies of it, because people get used to what they know, and to change programs, it's work. It's work to make it happen. We were looking for something that was going to be seamless, but was going to be more efficient. And it was, like I said, the transition, it was a lot of work. And, I have folks in the office that are not especially great with a computer. So it took a little bit to work through that. But I think that overall, everyone is happy with the transition, but really just had to get that buy-in from multiple parties.
So you hit on a topic, by the way, like I mentioned earlier off camera, I'm going to say it now. Feel free to jump in, guys. Don't wait for me. I say guys for me is men and women. I hope that does. Ladies, please feel free to jump in. You talked about communication. So I want to talk a little bit about that because it's probably number one almost in any survey I've ever seen in terms of what can be improved upon or what's the most important priority. You have multiple facets, all three of you, please feel free to jump in. You're communicating to your leadership. That includes the building level. You're communicating to your team. That could be, and that's multiple types, right? It can be the drivers, it can be the dispatch, multiple facets in that. And then you're communicating to your parents, and maybe you're communicating to others outside of that as well, municipality. There's other things that you need to be coordinating with. How do you do that? How is it working? You mentioned Stop Finder. That's specifically communicating with your parents. How do you do it? How have you improved? And where are you headed with that? And anybody can jump in. I'll start with Melissa because you're shaking your head. So it's like auction.
Yeah. That I will say we actually started with Stop Finder before transitioning to Transfinder Plus, and it's great. We love it because we're able to communicate with the parents. Let's say the bus is running 15 minutes behind due to an accident or some sort of road closure. We can target our audience on what we need to communicate. It's not just the whole school, it's maybe just one particular route, or even narrowing it down to certain people on a certain street. So that's great. And that was one of our goals as a school, is to be able to increase our communication, because we really appreciate having that buy-in from parents and having that partnership with the parents. And that's something that we strive to do on a better level down the road, is to increase our communication. So I think in the future, we're going to look at Viewfinder. That's going to be better communication with the school district as well, in the schools, and a little bit more efficient in our way of doing things. But I think having that communication with parents is huge. They love being able to just hit a button on their phone and send us a message without picking up the phone and calling, because that just takes time, and we're all short on time. So it's been great as far as efficiency.
It's nice to be able to also target just those that are affected, as opposed to everybody, because if your phone is buzzing all day long, eventually you turn it off and then you just lost the tool. Because so I'll admit it that we use Teams and Transfinder, and sometimes some of the channels keep buzzing, and then I silence them. I got to unsilence them at some point, or else I'm going to miss something. But so yeah, being able to target those. Anybody else want to weigh in? It can be, whether it's parent communication internally with your team or the administration.
We have started using Stop Finder just as of, we started full-time in December. And what I find is that it is still a great communication tool, but it allows me to respond to parents when it works for me, instead of having to stop what I'm doing to answer a phone call and being disrupted and then forgetting where I am when I'm done the call. It allows me to say, oh, there's something there, let me finish this, and then I'll respond to them. And I agree with Melissa. We have worked very hard on improving parent communication over the last few years. it's a necessity at this point. So we too will be looking at Viewfinder going forward, probably just to make it that much better. We had some pushback from our contractor when we first started using Stop Finder, just because it was a different way of doing things, and instead of getting a phone call from us with passing messages along, we just forward the Stop Finder notice on to them. So but I was like, we're not going back, so you got to get on board, like, you know, you got to watch your emails or your texts or whatever, but this is where we're going with it. So but yeah, Stop Finder, I have found we don't get less messages, we are just more efficient in how we deal with them.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day who told me that, so they also have ETA, so they can see, you know, the parents can see the buses in real time. And he goes, they like to tell me when a certain bus is not taking the route that it's supposed to. So he goes, we're actually keeping the drivers honest. But it's also the idea that I think when a parent can know something is late, know a bus is late, for instance, it can reduce their stress. You know, they may not be happy that the bus is late. Maybe they have a commitment somewhere and it's gonna kind of mess up. But if I know it, I can kind of plan accordingly, and I'm not worried any longer about my child on the bus. I think that's the stuff where, you know, it prevents them. One person mentioned that in a previous interview I did, where he mentioned, you know, they didn't go on social media, which is great. You know, they didn't call the TV station. They were able to get a direct answer in a somewhat timely fashion from the transportation department to say, you know, Tommy's bus is going to be late or whatever. They could just put those fears to rest. Leslie, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. We just used the messaging. Well, I take this back. We didn't use it, and we should have used it. My dispatcher just happened to go to an appointment that day, and San Diego had a tornado warning.
Oh.
A tornado warning. Okay? That has never happened. Maybe back in the day, but it's never happened here. We had kids at Birch Aquarium right on the coast where La Jolla is. That's where the Birch Aquarium is, on a field trip. Our district decided to go into secure campus. So I don't know if everybody else is aware, but they basically just go into their classrooms and lock the door and continue on with their as normal. But you have a bus full of 50 some odd kids on the shore of San Diego with supposedly a tornado warning coming. So our little red emergency binder does not have tornado warnings in it. Okay, so we had to call the driver, have him stop at the parking lot, you know, take the kids, just sit in his spot, shelter in place kind of idea. It would have been so helpful to have that, you know, to know what we were doing. We have it, but for all of our staff in the office to know how to use it and function with it. Not just for late buses, not just for that, but if you have a bus that's in an accident, if that unfortunately happens to you, we're so small here that I go out and drive sometimes. So we will sometimes send out an email to everybody saying, if you need dispatch, please use the radio and get a hold of us that way. But to be able to send out those messages at like the flick of a button, and like you said, to specialize them to individual routes if need be, especially here in San Diego with our wildfires that we've had in the past. We've experienced this when I was at Poway and at Grossmont with emergencies. It is very important that you have the timing of when you sent those messages out, what you sent out, the exact wording of it, and you have accountability for where your buses are and who has what children at that time, and that becomes vital for us. And that is a huge reason to have that product or something like that product in case of an emergency.
That's great. I mean, and also, wouldn't you all agree? I mean, it seems like this is kind of goes without saying these days, but expectations are higher maybe than ever these days with younger parents who have technology in their pocket, you know, knowing when the food is being delivered or when Amazon truck is coming, that they're almost expecting that instant notification of knowing, like what you just said, Leslie, okay, we have an alert here, or, you know, just whatever it may be. Don't you think that expectations are pretty high among parents now?
Yeah, and even when I started 13 years ago here, well, 15 years ago as an assistant, we used fanning lists. So we would call 5 parents, they would call 5 parents, and that's how we got the message out.
Wow.
You know, and then we moved to email, and we thought that was great. And then we had a text system that we thought that was great. And now we can like do it stop by stop, route by route. So yeah, as technology improves, expectations are definitely higher.
Actually, Leslie, when we did our little drive around yesterday, you asked Vanessa a question. It was just kind of a funny question about Canada. You want to just throw it out there because it's a
I
unique
did.
use.
I mean, we have squirrels, you have mooses. How often do they come into play in the transportation industry? I love mooses, especially at Christmas time. So I was really curious about your wildlife.
Yeah, we do. We actually bus out of the town side of Banff. I don't know if anybody's been to Banff and to the Rocky Mountains, but that is where we have the most of our wildlife encounters. There's a lot of elk that is in the area. There are moose out there, and there are bears that are in the town site and those kind of things. So it's nice to be able to let families know quickly we're going to move the stop, because I had to send a message out because there was a bobcat hanging around at a stop in Banff. So those kind of things, yeah.
Yeah, we just did a white paper not too long ago. It's still getting a lot of interest on Anchorage, Alaska, with moose. A driver sending a note, or I guess contacting dispatch, and then they sent a note out via Stop Finder to parents that they had to change the stop because there was a moose at a bus stop. So that doesn't happen, every day. So it's just an interesting little tidbit there. I want to change directions a little bit. It wasn't really what I was thinking we would discuss, but when we talked about it yesterday, it really, it was eye-opening for me, and I'd like to just share a little bit. I think, Leslie, you probably know where I'm going with this. You have a unique approach to transportation of special needs students. You have a philosophy, and you also have an approach, and you are continuing to work on building that approach. Can you share with us a little bit about, number one, the driver shortage situation too? So we give us the big picture, but then your unique approach to special needs.
So I am a little unique in my background. Not only am I, in the transportation industry and have always been my, whole adult life, but I've also I really have a heart, as I think Melissa and Vanessa both do. We wouldn't be in this industry. We're not in it for the money. So I think we all have a heart for children, and I find that we all have a heart for special needs students, and especially myself. I'm a mom. I'm a foster mom. I'm an adoptive mom. I run a program here in San Diego County with the San Diego Foster Youth. So it's very near and dear and personal to my heart, these students themselves. And they're all individuals, and they're all people and families that we talk about it on a broad level here, but they're all individual families and students that we work for. So that part of that plays into my philosophy with inclusivity and using that in transportation. And I was really happy Vanessa was telling us yesterday that they already do this. So I'm super excited to talk with like minds about this. And we have a driver shortage, and everybody talks about it on every panel, and everybody knows this. But what do we do to solve that? And how do we not just solve that, but work with what we have right now? So when we were talking about routing and had the opportunity, and I came in as a new director, I had the opportunity to kind of shift some things around, which you don't always want to do when you're the new person. But in this case, we had to do something. We don't have enough drivers. And so I directed my staff to make general ed routes inclusive of the special needs routes. And in order to do that, we went out for a grant for an electric bus, which is a huge push in California right now. And there's tons of grant money out there for it. We had 2 buses that we were not using at all that we were fortunate enough to turn in for grant money. We got a bus that I believe, don't quote me on this, it's like 53 passengers and 2 wheelchairs, but we can change it if we would like to. And that way we can have field trips with wheelchairs on them, special needs on them. And she has done a wonderful job using Transfinder to route general ed and special needs students at the same stops. So we see parents talking to other parents at the stops. We see kids being more empathetic towards other children on the bus. Does that come with problems? does that come with specialized training? Of course it does, because you will have those problems. Nobody's naive to that, but the training is there, and the empathy and the knowledge for staff to handle those problems comes with that, and that has really helped us with our routing this year.
That's
and
great.
Vanessa already does it, which is incredible, and I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about, I got to say, yesterday I said to you, Leslie, I'm like, this is the first time I've ever heard this. And then Vanessa goes, oh, we did. So I go, I must not be asking this question. So Vanessa, tell me a little bit about your approach. And then I'm going to throw it out to those who are attending. And obviously, Melissa, we didn't talk about that yesterday. So feel free to jump in as well. But
Sure.
I'm going to throw this out as a question while Vanessa's talking. Is this an approach you have either taken or would consider? And if you have a question, I can direct it to one of the panelists as well. So feel free to just jump in the questions, because we do like this to be interactive. Vanessa.
Yeah, we've actually, as long as I've been here, we've never had like special ed routes. They've always just ridden on the bus for those parents. Some families don't want their children to be on the bus, and then we provide some funding for them. But for parents who want their kids to be on the bus, they're just on with the routes with our typical kids. Like Leslie said, are there challenges? You bet there are, and drivers need more support in those situations for sure. But again, like Leslie said, I admire so much is that those kids are why we're here, and we need to make sure that we are servicing them and making good decisions for them as well.
That's great. Any thoughts on that, Melissa?
I will say we do some of that. We can't, unfortunately, do it to the degree that you folks might. Our special needs programs are up to like 45 minutes away. So that does make routing a little bit of a problem. But we do have some special needs programs within some of our elementaries and our middle school, and we are able to integrate some of those students into our regular runs. And I think it's great because the drivers get a really different view, and we work really hard to train the drivers, because in New York State, that's part of our training is special needs training at least once a year. And it's a wonderful way to educate the public, and as you said, Leslie, to help the kids be more empathetic, because really that is what we're here for, is for the kids. So it's great. I'm glad that you folks are able to implement that. I wish we had the geography to be able to do that a little bit more. Maybe in the future that they'll look at doing that, because it is difficult for some of our students to ride 45 minutes to 1 hour a day. But it is a wonderful tool when you can do that.
One of the things we also talked about yesterday was, again, this idea of like, how do we get ahead of certain things that we know may be coming up? So sometimes we just talked about leaping ahead in some ways, viewfinder and stop finder and upgrading and those kind of things. We talked about buy-in, but we also talked about issues that are going to be ongoing sometimes. McKinney-Vento was one of the ones we discussed yesterday, and that some of these issues can come up, and you are kind of like making it up on the fly because these things just kind of they kind of just pop up. But then we did discuss a little bit about how there can be kind of like a systematic approach still to dealing with this. Anybody want to jump in and talk a little bit about their approach and maybe where they want to go with serving this body?
I'll mention what we've done in our area. McKinney-Vento has been huge for us, and I think it has been for a lot of districts around us. So having a good routing software is key to that, because then you can see efficiencies. Oh, this driver might have 15 minutes and can go 2 towns over. The timing might work. It's really great to be able to utilize those tools to help with that. And we've also partnered with other districts in the area. So if the town two towns over might have some of our students, well, maybe we can reciprocate. Maybe we could help them out. And it's been great to develop that relationship with our colleagues in the area. And of course, we have NIACT, which is our state association. And it's great because we have our chapter in our area where we can collaborate with that. So that's how we're overcoming some of our McKinney-Vento issues. We don't have as many driver issues as some of our area school districts. We've been blessed to have a great support system and lots of drivers, and it's great to be able to have that. But we have those issues as far as the McKinney-Vento, and we have some behavior issues that we're working through. Those are some of the things that we're struggling with right now. Some of the kids are vaping. More students are struggling because of the setbacks that we've had with COVID. And unfortunately, their schooling is somewhat behind. So we're establishing some programs to kind of help with that. We've developed what's called SOS. We're Spartans here at Maine-Endwell. So we've developed a Save Our Spartans to help them kind of get back into the groove and get them back up to where they need to be education-wise, which has been more demands on the transportation department because we do that at the end of the day. So using those technologies to help us overcome that has been key. But I would say we're in a good spot that way.
Anybody else want? Thank you very much, Melissa. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I think it's so diverse. I mean, you have a diverse panel here: New York, Canada, California, and I think some of the I know some of the laws are different. You know, Senate Bill 88 came out with an extension for we have like kid Ubers for different Ubers that a lot of our districts use. I personally have a child that is on a kid Uber from another district and goes 45 minutes away to his school of origin. So I think the safest place is a school bus for a child. I don't, that's our motto here. So that will be the hill that I die on here in Santee, is that we will not use those services. Do we have a contract with a service like that? Yes. Have we ever used it? No, because I will go drive before we do that. But they are needed in some districts. I personally like it for my own kid. Like I say it on one hand and then on the other hand, I'm not. But yes, there are different solutions working, like Melissa said, with other districts in San Diego. If I take a child, then their home district will bring that child back. So we only do one way, but it really puts us in connection with the other districts as well. So, and SB 88 really is pushing to get rid of that, and be very careful when you are using places like that, because you should really be keeping track of their medicals and all their information as well. So especially if you're in California, make sure you're on top of that.
That's great. Vanessa, is this an issue where you are?
I'm not really completely sure about all of what that entails, but I will just say on Leslie's point about cooperating with other divisions, we do, in our province, we call it cooperative busing, and we do have a small school that has like 50 students in it, and we cooperative bus with our public school in that area to make sure we can get our kids to and from school as efficiently as we can. And it is important to reach out to divisions around you to cooperate whenever possible.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's the idea that, we don't operate in a vacuum. You may have things you do a little bit differently than your neighboring district, but how do you, we're all kind of on the same team. I know it sounds kind of corny, but we are. We touched a little bit yesterday on culture, and I think maybe why don't we just end on this? I mean, we got time for sure about how you build culture. Leslie, you touched on it already when you talk about the team gets the wins and I get the losses. I think that's an attitude that really shows, just like a football coach, hopefully doesn't like throw the quarterback under the bus, but instead says, we made some calls that we probably could have done. We didn't make the adjustments. The buck stops here kind of approach. But and that gets buy-in from your team if they feel like, okay, he's got our backs and that kind of thing. How do you build culture? There's some good things that I heard something, and I don't want to give it away, about activities that even other departments within the school have done to help boost the morale of the transportation department, which I thought was great. So I'm going to open up to anybody who wants to jump in. Hopefully I'll hear from all of you. But building culture, improving culture, because at the end of the day, that's really what's going to help you leap ahead. It's going to help you with the driver shortage, because they're going to want to go and tell their friends, hey, you want to work for this person or this team. It's going to help with just people doing better in their jobs, because people tend to do better when they're happy where they work. I can say I've had, the number of bad days I've had a Transfinder. I think I can count on one hand, maybe on one finger. That would be pretty good. But that makes you want to go to work. Makes you want to, doesn't make staying late a big deal. So who wants to jump in? I'm hopefully going to hear from all of you. Building culture, improving culture.
I'll jump in. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, where our school, I mean, years ago, before our transportation director came in, we had some cultural issues. He worked very hard to get that mindset out. So thankfully, folks retired that maybe weren't willing to put in the work and to move forward with how things should be. So he's been with us for 15 years, long before I came here, and has weeded out the poor performers, which is good. But I think really it depends on administration being able to work together. We're lucky because he has done some assistant principal at some of our schools, so we have a really great relationship with the administration from the top down. And one of the things that we have done, which is very much appreciated, is during Bus Driver Appreciation Week, the PTA actually comes out and they serve the bus drivers a really nice homemade meal. And they bring together the band. The band comes over and plays some songs, some music. The kids get together. They make a whole bunch of cards and sometimes gifts for some of the drivers, and it's really quite unique. I've never seen anything like it. It's great, and people just love to work here. And I think that's one of the reasons why we don't really have the driver shortages that some of the other districts might have. It's really the culture. So building that culture, it's more like a family mindset. Everybody cares about one another, and really working together to have a great team. But it really is from the top down, and they've done a wonderful job. So I walked into a great place to work, and I think it's just known in the community that it's just a great place to work, and it's helped us in that way. So that's some of the things that our principals and PTA has done to support our drivers.
That's great. I love the PTA thing. We talked a little bit yesterday about, I know some people within the department have made breakfast for their teams, but to have another group outside, then it's expanding the involvement, and then having the band come in, and they feel purposeful too. I think the kids probably get a kick out of doing that, so it's one more, hey, they got to practice anyway, right? Why not practice on with the bus drivers, and so I thought that was just such a neat idea. Leslie, Vanessa, any thoughts on you in terms of building culture and bringing it to the next level? Key things.
Melissa, I think I want to work at your division too.
It's great. We love it.
Yeah. I think for us, it's challenging because we contract out. So we don't have direct contact with our drivers. We have to go through our contractor for that. So that is definitely somewhere where we are challenged in that area. But I know our contractor does barbecues and cooks breakfasts and tries to do his best, but I do feel like our division does need to step up in ways to make our drivers feel part. Well, they're not our employees, they are definitely part of our division, and spend more time with our children than some, because we have kids that are on the bus for an hour and a half each way. That's longer than some high school kids have a teacher in a day, right? So
that's great. That's great.
And
And not only that, but you also, even just within your office, how do you build culture? You have people within your, right? Do you still have some employees that are working for you? How do you build that culture?
Yeah, so we do Monday morning meetings. We meet every Monday morning. We do because we are a Catholic organization, so we do things. It's Lent, so we do soup every Friday, those kind of things. We We have a social committee that does a really great job of like doing coffee Tuesdays, and we just had a pizza bingo and those kind of things at the social committee. So within our office, that's kind of how we deal with that.
Very good. Very good. Leslie?
Yeah, so when I came in, there was actually a very good culture here. I was very fortunate to come in, and the previous dispatcher works as a transportation director in another district for us, and she's incredible. And her and I have actually gone to things together, and I get a lot of feedback from her. She's incredibly smart, incredibly bright woman. And so I lean on her a lot, and I do try to, this morning on the way here, text my dispatcher, hey, Starbucks or whatever it might be.
Nice.
Like, we're all busy. We're all like, today's nuts. What are we doing for lunch? You got to tell me by 7 a.m. what we're going to do for lunch so I can get it done, but we'll get it,
That's
So
awesome.
make sure everybody's taken care of. And then I do find that even though I do hold that leadership role, I hold that confidentiality very close to my chest. So when drivers come to tell me, hey, this driver's having a really hard time, like I think you should check on them. This aide is walking to work every day. I got it. I'll take care of that. I got that. And I hold that really close to my chest and make sure that I follow up on that, and I'm checking on my people and that everybody is okay. We thankfully are small enough to do that. I couldn't imagine with, it keeps my plate full, but I take care of my people or make sure that they are taken care of.
That's
So
awesome.
we're very close in that regard. Thankfully, we are.
We have a guy who leads one of the teams here, and he uses the word you use, a lot. It's very personal. It's very ownership in a good way. Like, this is my team. I think in going back to the football analogy, you have the special teams coach, you have the offense coordinator, and so, and they, believe me, they're gonna watch out for those guys. Those are my guys. And the camaraderie and stuff. So anyway, I like that a lot. Melissa, you look like you're gonna say something. I don't want to cut you off.
No,
No,
go
okay.
ahead.
So I just did get a question. So I promise I always try to bring the questions to the forefront. I think this is going to be really for Leslie and Vanessa. The question from Tracy is, how hard was the transition from one software to using Transfinder software? Because Melissa, you upgraded, but you were already within Transfinder.
Mhm.
So Vanessa, I'll start with you, and Leslie, if you guys have anything you want to add.
For us, it wasn't hard, but we allowed a lot of time to switch from one to the other.
Sure.
We had almost 8 to 10 months, I think, before we implemented. I will say that Transfinder was fantastic every step of the way in getting us moved over. And so we kind of came up with a game plan about, okay, this is, I talked to our student information people, so that they knew, because we wanted to do automatic imports. So we kind of connected them with Transfinder directly. We had a Canadian map was a little bit different so that had to be worked out. But we allowed a lot of time, which I think was the most important thing for us. We didn't rush it. We actually, at one point, I did just say we delayed it by 4 months, because I was like, now we're coming into my, now I have to start thinking about next year, and I don't want to have to do that on top of. And the other girl that works with me in my office was fantastic of stepping up and doing a lot of it as well. So it was just allowing the time for us.
Very good. That's a great answer. And again, see, I did not know where you were going, so this is unrehearsed whatsoever. Leslie?
We kind of have an opposite problem. I think it's, for us, we've allowed too much time. We are not 100% there yet. We probably should be, but it has taken time. But I look at that and think we should have cut the cord a long time ago. We should have jumped into this software and really did it, right? I say that on one hand. On the other hand, I might be driving this afternoon. There's only so many hours in the day. And like Vanessa said, we did the import with our technology people. That took a minute, because that's coordinating calendars, that's coordinating people, right? Sounds easy. Sounds like you flip the switch and you start routing. It's not. It's a really integrated system, which is good, good in the long term, bad for short term when you're trying to learn the system. So we are not fully, if you were to ask me like about a particular student right now, I would go to our database, which is on an Excel spreadsheet, because I personally need to jump into the program more. But Transfinder does have those programs that you can go online and watch the videos, and those are the most helpful. So if you get like a spring break or something where things kind of die down, you can do it. And then your Transfinder person that comes in to help you with integration has been really helpful. We had a gentleman named Brian who I loved, and he still answers my questions to this day. But looking back, I wish we would have done it and cut the cord and just jump straight into Transfinder.
Yeah.
I say that, but as I said, like my staff is probably driving today too. So that's where we're at.
You don't like Uber, you like Uber. We get you, Leslie. There's a little, yeah, you're honest. I love it. I love it. All
I
right.
will jump in and say one thing in our transition, even though it was from Pro to Plus, I think we were kind of maybe too quick in our way. I would have loved to take a little bit more time. We started like Transfinder University in March, and then we transitioned over the summer, which is a lot of pressure. But Transfinder community is great as far as teaching you things. And we were lucky to have some folks close by, other transportation supervisors that I hit up and said, when I was about ready to tear my hair out and say, how do I do X, Y, and Z? I just got on the phone and we had tons of help, and our trainer was great. So there's a sweet spot, definitely. And it's really good if you work with your project manager to figure out the timeline, because it does take a lot of coordination with different departments.
I've heard I've heard lots of similar, I've heard people who run parallel units until they're ready to make the switch. I've also heard others that have just literally jumped off the ledge and just figured out how to swim, and everything in between that. So good feedback. I'm going to ask you guys to give me quickly, it's going to be one, and I got a couple more slides to go through, but I'd like it to give me one. I didn't prep you for this yesterday, and I'm sorry. One takeaway. So we have all these attendees now. They're going to go either back to their office, maybe talk to their team, maybe they're going to just go back to an administrator, maybe they're going to run into the school board, whatever it may be. What's just one thing that you want them to take back from this? We covered a lot of ground. I'm going to start with you, Vanessa, because I haven't started with you yet. The other two are my bookends. I've been going to, so Vanessa, you will kick us off, Melissa, and then Leslie, if you want to close us out.
Well, I think the one takeaway is to keep your decisions and your organization student focused.
Student focused, very good. Melissa.
I would say, well, can I have a couple of things?
Sure, go ahead.
Have a goal in mind, and a plan to get there, and ask for help when you need it.
Excellent, excellent. And Leslie.
You may have the title of a leader, but your team is what's going to make or break you at the end of the day.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. A couple quick housekeeping items here. Just want to let you know we have a story coming out in STN. This is the March edition, which I don't think is on stands yet. I think tomorrow might even be released digitally. That's Anna Banner. She is with Garland ISD, and she actually has been a panelist. So we're excited about this story about, they were also a top transportation team. So we're excited about that story. And by the way, going to what you just said, Leslie, she insisted, Anna's very sweet, but that her team be in this picture. So there were multiple shots that you can imagine for the photo shoot, but she needed to have that team. And she even emailed me and said, yeah, the team, and she reminded me several times, are they in the picture? So that's that. Let me see what else I needed to move. Okay, so do you have a story? So we are always looking for stories. That can be whether you're a Transfinder client or not. We are always looking for categorizing, these best practices, what's worked for you. And so we can share them. That's the whole idea of this whole community here, is sharing these best practices so people can learn from one another. And then finally, our next webinar is 1 month. Well, not, I was gonna say 1 month from today, but that's not true. March 28th. And stay tuned for more details on that. But it'll be another good one. But I just want to thank, again, our panelists. I know how busy you are, for taking time yesterday and today to help out with all this great content for all the attendees. For now, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.